I wanted to do a finish up video on the audio system that I put in the GT3. And I know that it's controversial to do an audio system in a lightweight, noisy car. But again, what I was looking to accomplish was I wanted it to be a pretty simple setup, so I don't want all kinds of equipment all over the place. I wanted you to use the factory PCM, the factory head unit. I didn't want to sort of mess with too much of the electrical system of the car. I just wanted to simply pull out the amplifier that's in the car, the factory amp, replace it with a better amp, and then better speakers in the door, and then a sort of a modular subwoofer. And so, again, if you haven't seen the first parts of this video, what I did is I reached out to a company up in Boston after I saw that they made this awesome box that was about 6 inches deep with a 10-inch subwoofer that fits into the sort of the kick panel of the footwell of the passenger side. It isn't really obtrusive. I don't have to cut or do anything crazy. So I contacted them, and since become pretty good friends with those guys. The company's called Sound and Motion up in Boston. And your first thought would be, well, why in the world, you're in Florida, why in the world would you go and get something out of Boston? And I think largely because it has to do with it sort of started with that box. And then the other thing that intrigued me is that I saw that they use Dyne Audio a lot. So I just had a feeling, I just knew that their sort of listening style, that Derek, who owns Sound and Motion, Jim, who runs it, I sort of had a sneaky suspicion that they would have the same thought process as me. So I mean, I've been out of the audio game for a long time. So what I try to do is try to find people that I think know more than me. It's not that I know everything, but I know more than the average person. So I need someone above average, or I need a pro in order to sort of help me sort of figure out things that are complicated, like doing an audio system. So we after some talk, we designed the system, put the system together, and basically what I have are Dyne 6.5 inch. So I have the Esotec or Esotec. I think it's Esotec, Dyne Audio Esotec 242 package, which is the 6.5 inch in the door with the Sound and Motion trim ring that's built so that it fits right in the door panel. I have the Dyne Audio 1-inch tweeter up in the dash in the factory location. Silk dome tweeters is part of the reason why I like Dyne Audio so much. A Genesis Genesis Series 3 amplifier up here in the front trunk, the frunk. And then a Illusion Audio 10-inch woofer with a neodymium magnet on the front of the woofer. So it's a really thin, really shallow depth mount woofer that's actually mounted facing downward in the passenger footwell. And then a Moscone processor in order to sort of process all the information and be able to sort of tune and real-time analyze the sound. So the pitfalls of this. When I first put this together, asked the guys to put this together and decided to do this do-it-yourself project, I thought it would be easy, that everyone can do it. I don't know that everyone could do it. Again, I have some significant experience with installing and watching installs and selling, car stereo, and I have some experience on how to take cars apart. I was a little nervous about that because obviously it's such an expensive car and it's my baby, so I didn't want to start tearing things and cracking things and breaking things, and I don't have a lot of expertise and a lot of mechanical ability, so I was a little nervous about doing it myself. But once I saw what the system was built on, or sort of the fabricated pieces that Sound and Motion had, I thought I could do it. What I asked them to do was create me a harness, make me a wiring harness that would be sort of relatively self-explanatory, with some directions on which wire's which. And I learned a lot. Especially, it's been I haven't done a newer car like this where I'm tapping into. I've always done a head unit and an amplifier, and I mean, that's pretty easy. You buy a Metro harness and you go color to color and you plug it in and everything's good to go. You run your RCAs to your amp and power to the battery and you're done. With this, with me tapping into the factory PCM, catching that low-level signal was the difficult part, the part that I was concerned about. So the pitfalls are, I had a ground loop. I had wired the speakers backwards. So if I hadn't made some of these errors, and these are the things that, if I did it again, I could probably install the thing in 6 or 8 hours and be done with it. But it took me several weeks of screwing around with the thing to figure out where my mistakes were. And so, now if I were to, I'm supremely confident, especially in a GT3, if I get another one, I'd absolutely do it again. So the first, I started to get a little frustrated, and I had Derek come down and we tuned the car. It sounded fantastic, and then I started the car and it turned out we had a ground loop, and it's probably something I did. I mean, who knows? But it took me a while to troubleshoot to get rid of that ground loop. Basically, if you don't know what a ground loop is, it's just a whining. You can hear the alternator. You can hear a whining in the speakers. As you rev the car, as the RPMs rise, the whine gets more high pitched, and it's super annoying, and just it sort of defeats the whole purpose of spending a decent amount of money, or a large amount of money in this case, on a higher end system. So last thing I need to do is we figured this out, that Genesis is a little weird in that they don't include the sub-control card or module for the amplifier in all their amps. And because I thought I'd blown up an amp when I had the speakers wired backwards, Sound Motion had sort of overnighted me direct from the US importer. Morel had imported me a new amp, and that amp, once I put it in here, and once I figured out that I'd wired the speakers backwards, I just decided to leave it in here. So I didn't do the swap the original amp that they sent me back. So I've got a sub-control wired, but no sub-control. So what I'll probably do, and since Derek came down, I flew Derek down, I paid about his plane ticket. He was gracious enough to spend a weekend down here of his time in tuning the system, and we had tuned it. There was nothing we could do. I flew him down, and he was here, so we tuned it without sub-control. It sounds great. The system sounds fantastic. I probably will look into, if I can't, what I don't want to do is swap the amp out, because we have the system tuned for this combination, this setup, and every amp's going to be a little different. So I'm going to look into, I might give the guys a call and see if we can look into if I can take the amp apart and put if it's just some simple card or simple module for sub-control, if I can do that. Again, I have the knob installed, I have it all plugged in, I just need the card inside the amplifier. If not, I'll probably just go without sub-control, or what I may do at some point, I may do an aftermarket head unit in here. I wanted to try to avoid that. I sort of assumed it would be difficult. One of the things that Derek made mention to me that makes a lot of sense is that, like, for instance, in Japan, I think they have a Pioneer head unit, so they have an actual aftermarket head unit. So Porsche makes an OEM trim ring for an aftermarket doubled-in Pioneer head unit, and so it's really pretty plug and play. And then I would get sub-control via the head unit. I don't really care about nav, but of course the Pioneer would have its own GPS-enabled navigation and things like that. And the advantage of it, I could get Apple CarPlay and some other things, but I just like the idea of having the factory PCM. So you look at the car, you get in the car, you don't notice any difference. Everything looks factory, and unless you knew any better, unless you owned the car or had an idea, you'd have a hard time figuring out that what was in the car wasn't factory. So I don't know if I'll do that or not. So the project was certainly worthwhile. It's easier to think about it now. I had some frustrations with the ground loop and the wiring backwards, and figuring things out and figuring out how to take things apart and how to put it back together. And Again, I'm so pleased at how this car is constructed. It's so easy to take apart and put back together. Everything, there's no rattles, there's no shakes. If anything, there's less rattles and shakes than what I had before because I dynamatted the inside of the doors. I gained about 40 pounds, 35 pounds worth of weight in the car, but I can't really feel that difference. Like, I know I can't. I'm on a quest to lose 40 pounds, so that'll offset it anyway. So the system, the project was worthwhile. The experience with Sound in Motion, if you're interested, I would, I don't have any affiliation with these guys. I just call them just like you would. But I'd call them up and talk to them about, shoot, if you don't want to take on the project yourself, I would urge you to ship the car to these guys. I mean, the cost to ship your car, $300, $400, $500, $600, depending on where you are. Maybe $1,000 round trip if you're going to invest the money and get the system tuned. It'll certainly save you some headaches. I kind of enjoy the process. Now that I look back at it, I'm sort of happy I did the thing, but in the beginning I was a little frustrated. But I would give the guys a call and sort of talk through different system options. So, I'm about $7,500, $7,800 into the system for everything, and that's obviously a lot of money. I intend to, if I did get another GT3 or I got rid of this GT3, I would revert it back to stock. So, these Dynaudio speakers will last forever. The amplifier will last a long, long time. The Moscone processor would probably be something you'd swap out as technology gets better. But a lot of this stuff I'll be able to use either it's going to stay in this car for a long, long, long time if I keep it, or I'll pull it out and swap it back to factory. And the way we design the system is everything will go back without any hitches. I'm not duping anybody or screwing anybody by rigging it back together. It will go right back to factory. The only difference is you'll have wire ties or wire nuts on the wiring. On the sort of the factory amp. So would I do it again? Yes. Would I do it if I didn't have some audio experience? Probably not. But you could offset some of your audio experience with mechanical ability, and Derek could help you troubleshoot it. Jim could help you troubleshoot the system if you get stuck. So if you're more mechanically inclined than me, and maybe not quite as proficient in audio equipment, all you gotta do is follow the directions, and then use your mechanical ability to get the thing taken care of, or get the car taken apart and everything installed. So it sounds awesome. It's perfect, exactly what I wanted, and to sort of give you an idea on the sound, super smooth. Tight, punchy bass. I didn't want a ton of ghetto bass. I listened to a lot of rock and I guess higher sound cue stuff, Pink Floyd. But I do listen to Tool and Perfect Circle, and I'll listen to some chick stuff, Christina Perry, and listen to a bunch of random crap. But I don't really listen to, I don't listen to rap, I don't listen to country, so the system is tuned for that specific purpose. And I think that, again, I think if you're looking for a sound cue, a quality system, then I think this is the way to go. You could obviously swap out components, maybe not do as expensive an amplifier, don't do as expensive of drivers, do something more basic. JL sub, JL drivers, or Boston Acoustics or something like that. Use a different amplifier, a JL amp, and your cost can fall several $1,000s. So just something to think about if you're considering it. So great project, had a lot of fun with it. I would do it again, and if any of you guys are interested in if you have a GT3 and you want to do something like this, I'd be happy to talk to you offline and give you my opinion on whether I think you're capable of doing this. I think everybody is, just a question of how much pain do you want to go through, pain versus dollars. And so I was willing to endure some pain in order to save some dollars, if you will. So successful project, a lot of fun, sounds incredible. Even with a noisy GT3 cruising on the highway, I still think it's worth having a decent audio system. But for anything, just the amplitude, the volume of it, so I can actually hear what the heck's going on. Successful project. I had a lot of fun, and I appreciate you guys following me along with this crazy idea.